Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast, a real look at single parenting, the ups and downs and how to navigate life with kids on your own while keeping sane. Covering subjects such as domestic violence through to fussy eaters and solo dating. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome.
This week, I have on the podcast a master trainer from Triple P International, who has trained parenting practitioners in Australia, the UK, the US, Canada, Hong Kong, and Singapore. He's a registered psychologist who has been working with children and families as a teacher, guidance counsellor, and psychologist for more than 30 years, and is interested in supporting families, particularly those with children on the autistic spectrum. He's completed a PhD at the University of Queensland, examining the effects of preterm parenting intervention on later child behaviour. And outside of his day job, he loves spending time with his own family, watching rugby league and rugby union. Crikey, there's a lot of rugby there. And collecting antique clocks. Hi, Michael. Welcome to the podcast. How are you this morning?
I'm pretty good, in lockdown, but pretty good.
Oh, I know. Don't go there. I've just come out. So, yeah, I know. It seems to be our world at the moment, doesn't it, these lockdowns? Yeah, no, I know. So, hey, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's awesome to speak to you. Tell us about how you became involved in working with children and families and how you've come into this line of work.
Well, it's a pretty long 35-year story, Claire, if you can cope with that. So I began my working life as a teacher. So that involved with children and families. And I worked as a guidance officer then for a period of time. And then I eventually became a psychologist. And I've been working as a psychologist for a lot of years as well. And, of course, I've always been interested in children, always been interested in behaviour. And I worked in a behaviour program called the Management of Young Children program, which was a clinical program for 18 years. That was for children 2.5 to 7 who were pretty tricky for their parents. And those parents children taught me a huge amount about families and children and what works well and what doesn't work well. So I felt like that was a really good grounding for the sort of clinic work that I have done recently, and now to support practitioners to help parents themselves, which is the work I do now. So it's been a long involvement with children and families. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm still learning. Every day I learn something about how to go better support families with children.
Yeah, well, they're an evolving little process, aren't they, these kids? They're, yeah. And I suppose over, society and culture has changed over the 35 years that you've been involved as such. And we've now gone from TVs and radios and things like that to being online and iPads and all of that sort of environment. So we're dealing with different challenges with our children on a daily basis, and God knows what the future will have to come regarding AI and blimmin', virtual realities and things like that. Yeah, it's scary. So, okay, so you're now dealing with helping people through the Triple P. And so tell us more about how you help families, it's not so much families, is it? Because what you do is you train the people who help the families.
So we train practitioners, like I said, parenting practitioners, to support families to be able to go better and enjoy being with their children is what we do. So the group I work for now, Triple P International, they have the rights to be able to train practitioners in all the different levels of Triple P interventions that come from the University of Queensland. So all these programs are from the University of Queensland. And my job is to be able to train practitioners in all the different programs of Triple P.
Yeah.
So I may not work directly with families at this stage, although only doing it for the last 3 years. Prior to that, I was doing this job and still working in a clinic. But at the moment, I'm just supporting practitioners.
Yeah, stuck at home.
Stuck at home as well.
Yeah, stuck at home supporting practitioners. So, okay, so tell me a little bit more about the University of Queensland, basically, because all of this training and help is coming out of the University of Queensland. So what's their connection with what you guys actually are doing?
Well, I suppose it's been an evolving process for about the last 40 years. A development of these programs began with Matt Sanders, who developed his own program through his own PhD, and it developed from there, where now we have multiple different types of intervention, different levels of intervention as well. So there's 5 levels of parenting support we can offer. Level 1 being just general information about parenting we might provide for parents. And level 2 might be just for parents attending a seminar, like a presentation. Level 3 might be a specific parenting process for help parents with a specific problem like bedwetting or sharing or fighting or specific problems. And level 4 might be a group, much more intensive group interventions, and right up to level 5, which is much more intensive. So the intensity of the program increases as the levels go up. So it's trying to meet the needs of the parent. Whatever the need of the parent might be, they might just need a little bit of information. That's okay. They might need more intensive information. So this model of Triple P allows practitioners to be able to access the level of support that a parent might need at that particular time.
And is this available? What you guys do, or these practitioners as such, are they? Is the service that you provide for everyone, for every parent, or is it just that it's for particular parents in particular situations as such?
For every parent who's interested in accessing the support.
Wow.
So any parent is able to access, and there's online versions of the program as well that parents can access also.
Yeah.
Plus on the Triple P website, they can access practitioners as well that perhaps could be in their area offering different Triple P interventions. We can't guarantee there's practitioners in every area, but there's a lot of practitioners.
Yeah.
In fact, it's right across the world. I mean, you might be interested to know, Claire. Triple P is in about 29 countries. So it's spread far and wide.
Yes, no, definitely. Well, it's Triple P International, and you've trained people all over the world, which is amazing.
That's true.
So, okay, This podcast is mainly about helping single parents to survive bringing up kids with all of the myriad of different challenges that we have, which can be from dealing with domestic violence situations to abuse, to alcohol and drug abuse and dealing with partners from there, to just basically generally budget constraints or dealing with children going off to school and all the various different things like that. So what do you see in all of the information that comes out from the University of Queensland and your experience? What do you see are the biggest challenges for single parents per se regarding bringing up children?
Well, I suppose that my first response would be the fact it's a bigger challenge, because when you're doing something by yourself, it's a bigger challenge. However, it's not necessarily a different challenge, because it's about building relationships with those little people you have at home.
Yeah.
So we need to think about what are the things I can do to build relationships with my children, whether I'm by myself or not. However, the fact that I now don't have support, or I may not have any outside support, that requires a bigger challenge. But there are certain little things, I think, that can make a difference for us in a single-parent environment. When I think about even some of the Triple P strategies perhaps that might be used, would you be keen to know about one?
Oh, my God, I'd be keen to know about all of them, dude. It's being, and I know because I've just come out of lockdown, quarantine, and now I've had a child in gastro as well. So, yeah, I've had everything thrown at me. And so, yeah, and it is, you are right, because it is about the communication. And I have to say, thank God for technology, because while my child is sitting on the toilet screaming and in he wasn't screaming, but while he was sitting on the toilet, just trying to get through gastro, I could Facebook my mother in the UK to enable him to have somebody to support him while I was clearing everything up, which not every single parent actually has. But it's the challenges of trying to deal with stuff at 1 o'clock in the morning and go from there. But
Claire, I was going to let you know about
one
idea.
Me. Please
well,
tell
sometimes
me.
The families that I work with, often who are single parents, for example, they often say it is a very busy environment to have 3 children by yourself, not much support. But one of the strategies, for example, we talk about in this model of Triple P is about quality time. And parents will think to themselves, well, I haven't got time. I haven't got 30 minutes to spend with each of my 3 children. I've got to work. I've got to organise meals and what. I haven't got that time. But in this model, what we try and help parents see is not necessarily larger blocks or larger slabs of time, like 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever, but to think more about the availability of a parent. For example, when Oscar even comes to you and asks you a question, and you respond to that question, you stop what you're doing, respond to your question, that might take 15 seconds or 30 seconds, and then off Oscar goes playing again. That sends a message of availability, and it's that availability that's a really important part of building that relationship and quality time with the child. So quality time doesn't have to just be large slabs of time. It's about single parents thinking about, okay, that's something I can do. I can actually stop for 15 seconds, respond to my child, and off they go playing again. I'm sure parents listening to this podcast would have all seen children do that. For example, if your child comes and asks you this, Mummy, why is the moon round? I'm sure
it just is, okay. No, yeah.
Well, so there's a child approaching you and asking you something. So we could just prompt them and say, well, what are you thinking? What's your idea? And the child says, oh, I don't know. Or how can we find that out? So that might just take a few moments to respond at that particular time. But you're helping the child, first of all, think for themselves a little bit, perhaps. And then you're also giving them quality time, which is just sending the message that you're available.
Well, and also in saying, well, what do you think? What's your idea? Why do you think it's round? It's validating them as well. Because I think also often as a parent, you just go, I'm busy or whatever, because you're doing something and they're asking a question that maybe needs a bit more in-depth discussion. And in just turning around and asking them to give you information validates that. And it's about validating them as a little person as well, because they are their own individual and they are going to grow up to be their own person at the end of the day. Yeah.
And I think also about value adding to that. So as a child comes and approaches us, where we give them that 15 or 30 seconds, we can use other things like touch. Like cuddle, like as they come and talk to us and we touch them, we might cuddle them as they tell us something, we respond to it, and then off they go playing again. So we've really value added just that quality time that could just be 15 or 30 seconds. So as I think about the families that I work with who are, say, single parents, I think about those sorts of strategies that are really doable.
Yeah. And look, I've found, especially working in lockdown, and I've been working full time in lockdown and he's been with me, that even just giving him, sometimes it's more beneficial to give him 5-10 minutes, because it means I then get half an hour on my own to do some work, than to actually fob him off. And then it's just giving him that small amount of time, which might be 10 minutes, but it means I get a larger amount of time to actually be able to do work and go from them. Or even like I've put a table in my office, and so he's been in my office while I've been working. He's been doing his schoolwork in my office. So he's not actually in a different room from me. He's in the office doing his schoolwork, as long as I'm not on a meeting and he's not like being noisy. Or he comes in my office and he'll spread Lego out all over the floor and he'll play in the office with me so that he can ask me questions while he's with me. So I completely agree. It's lockdown, God love it. But there are advantages to lockdown as well, because it means that I've built a completely different relationship to my son that I would never have built maybe had he been at school or daycare all the time. Okay, so agree, communication is like the top thing on the list. So have you got any tips or anything for parents regarding managing those time boundaries, managing their children as such within that constraint?
Yeah, well, what I come across a lot is because the families that I work with typically, even though now I'm working with practitioners, the families I work with over the years, lots of them come with this sort of belief. The belief is something about its severity of me responding to children that do the job, as opposed to thinking about certainty. For example, I have parents who I do an intake interview with, and they've taken everything off their child. Their thinking is that if they're not being cooperative, I'll take this off them, then they'll take that off them, and I'll take that off them, and I'll have children who just have nothing left but their bed. And their parents will even take the light bulb out of the socket and take the door off. So the thinking is that severity will do the job. But what we know as little people when we think about this model of triple P is that it's just certainty. It's little people knowing that if mum, for example, is using something like a consequence or a logical consequence, that the parent removes something for a brief period of time, not in terms of taking it off the child forever. For example, this might be an example: 2 children playing with an iPad, and we've taught them how to take turns with this iPad. They know how to do the job, but they're fighting over the iPad. So I could give them a direction. I could say to the kids, look, kids, stop fighting over the iPad, please, and take turns. There's the direction. And then I've now got to decide, give them a chance to do it. So I've got to decide how long I'm going to wait. It might be 15 seconds. So they haven't done as they've asked. So now I want to send a message of certainty. So I can say to the kids, look, kids, you haven't done as mum's asked or dad's asked. I'm hanging on to that iPad now for 5 minutes. So that's a sense of certainty, not severity. I'm not saying this, you're not having that iPad for the rest of your life. I'm not saying that. Sense of certainty.
Although some of us may wish that.
That's right. The sense of certainty is also after the 5 minutes, I can say, look, kids, the 5 minutes is up. Here's the iPad back. It's really important that you take turns with it. And now the process still hasn't finished, because now I need to be looking for opportunities to encourage them taking turns. So if I stay briefly with them for 30 seconds, I might notice them taking turns, and I might use touch or encouragement at that stage to really notice that they're taking turns. So when we think severity and we say things like, give me that iPad, you're not going to play with it now forever, then it's just it's not a useful understanding. And when I think about parents with by themselves with their children, where there's a lot to do, it's busy, it's hard work, it's very easy to get locked into that sense of severity. Whereas if we can step back and just think about certainty rather than severity, that can be really helpful. And all the models, all the triple P interventions help parents to be able to use this idea, I think, of certainty rather than being severe with children, because we never have to be severe with children, just certain.
Okay, so what is the effect? So I'm sure there's loads of listeners out there that have done it, where you go, right, that's it, you're not having TV for the next day or so, or that's it, no TV for this week, or no iPad for this week, or whatever. What is the effect, though, on that little person of that severity or whatever of saying that, though? Is there research that's been done on that?
Well, it's about how
Obviously it doesn't.
It's about how the message is delivered as well. For example, I could deliver that message really angrily. I could say, "Now, you're not having that TV now for the rest of the day," or whatever it might be. I could deliver it angry.
And 9 times out of 10, that's sometimes how it's delivered.
Sure. But if I deliver it in a calm way, a sense of certainty, look, kids, you haven't done as I've asked, you haven't turned the TV off, I'm turning it off, or whatever the consequence might be. So the parent just responds calmly. Then it allows the consequence to do the teaching, not the anger or the lecture the parent wants to give in amongst all that. And it's easy for me to sit here and talk about that. I know that's a real challenge to do that. But it helps parents develop ideas for how I can deliver the sorts of messages I want to deliver to my children. But to not think about severity, even the way we deliver the message can be a severe message, but we just don't need to do that if we have that sense of certainty about us.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of things out there in the media, or there's a lot of courses out there that say, I used to shout at my kids all the time to get them to do things, and now I don't shout at them because I found this process of being able to communicate in a different way, and they tend to do that. Like, is that sort of what you're saying? Is like it's about being firm, being calm. Number one, being calm. And I know we can't all be that, especially when we've had 2 hours sleep and all the various different things, buttons being pushed. But so it's...
I think what it's about is being planful, like actually knowing what it is we're going to do in situations, Claire. Like if, for example, we don't quite know what to do in the situation, what tends to happen is we get angry. We throw emotion at the situation. Whereas if we're able to sit back and think, okay, this is what my plan, when the 2 children are fighting over the iPad, this is what my plan is, that I can follow through calmly if I know what my plan is. And I suppose as we think about what triple P can do for families, it allows parents, gives them lots of opportunities and ideas to draw from to allow them to be planful so they can be calmer with their children, so they can build better relationships with them, so they can enjoy being with them, which is a lovely thing to be able to do.
Yeah, and I have to say, sometimes it is out of desperation that you go down certain avenues because you have tried maybe a few things and they haven't worked, and you don't have all those tools in your toolbox as such. So you just resort to the most animalistic, in a way, like thing of going, right, well, I'm so frustrated, I'm just going to shout because that's my frustration or my anger or my desperation coming out. And really, it's about educating yourself to get more tools in your toolbox to manage the situations.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I think, Claire, to make that. Yeah, it is a matter of looking at what are all my options in this situation. How can I develop the idea to be able to, what strategies, rather, can I use that allows me to be calm in situations where I'm not just trying to coerce or use anger or use lectures or use threats with children as well. There are alternative ways to do it. And that really helps parents to be able to deliver the messages in a calm way rather than using threats and anger. It helps build relationship, and that's what Triple P is about, helping parents build relationships with children.
Yeah, and I think I agree with the building relationships. I think it's fantastic because if you build relationships now, when they start to get to those teen years, those dreaded teen years, and I love my son to bits, and he has some awesome traits, but I am really dreading his teen years because they might be fantastic and it might be great, but I think those traits, he's going to want to be his own man, and that's where mummy and son may clash, but it's okay. It won't be, because I'll get tools in my toolbox and I'll be fine. But it's about building that relationship so you don't have those clashes. So, okay, and I think we've touched on it slightly with what we're discussing and going over, but what should parents never do?
Well, I suppose one thing, as I think about the parents I work with, what's not helpful for parents, because it's easy to get caught into this, is to use threats with children.
Okay.
For example, if you keep doing that, I'm going to do this. If you keep doing that, I'm going to do this. So children get used to that and they wait for the ultimate threat. When will mummy actually really mean it? When mummy's face looks this red and mum's voice gets this loud, that's when mummy really means it. So children learn to wait for the ultimate threat. And again, it's easy for me to sit here and calmly say, well, not to use threats with children. But if we think about what Triple P might help parents with, is how to give an instruction, how to give a calm instruction, where to stand, how to get closer, to help parents think about all the things that could make a difference for them. What does a clear, calm instruction sound like, as opposed to a threat? So something that I find a lot of with families is using threats with children. And if threats appear to be successful, because often they appear successful because they can have something quite coercive attached to it. So it looks like it's successful to the parent, but however, it has a big impact on relationship building. So if I think about one thing I think that's useful for families to perhaps try and avoid is this idea of using threats with young people.
Okay, but then, so what do you use as an alternative to a threat? So, go.
Yeah, well, if we think about being planful around that, so if say with the children who are fighting over that iPad we talked about before, I could say to those kids, if you kids keep fighting, I'm going to take that iPad off you forever. I told you, I warned you, and I could go away and I come back. I just told you, kids, if you keep that up, you're still fighting. I'm going to take that off you. And those threats could increase the emotional heat in the situation. So definitely. I'm now trying to use threats. Whereas if I just said to them, what we call a stop direction, which has two parts to it. Kids, stop fighting over the iPad, please, and take turns. There's the direction. And I've delivered it in a reasonably calm way because I've got a plan. Now, the kids haven't paid no attention to me at all, haven't even responded. So I give them a chance to do it. If they haven't done it, kids, you haven't done as I've asked. I'm hanging on to that iPad for 5 minutes. So I'm responding straight away. Rather than using threats, I'm just using a logical consequence.
Okay.
But the process involves giving the activity back to that's what's important. And sometimes parents say this to me, I forgot I took it off them. So if we think about the process, it's really important that it does come back because we want our children to be successful with it. We want them to be able to take turns playing on the iPad. So we're setting them up to be able to do that. And I want to be able to encourage them when I do give it back. So I suppose what I'm referring to there is this idea of trying to be planful in these situations allows me to be calmer, allows me to send the sort of message I want to send, that allows me to build relationship. That's a positive relationship with our children.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Oh, I had something go into my brain then, and then it's just gone out the other side. It's just lack of sleep, I suppose. Let me just think. What was that?
You must have a little one.
Yes, at the moment, a little one going on 55, but it's okay. He's good at this. He's very good at this. So, okay. And also, and I know as single parents, we get this probably quite a bit, as well. So one parent is the parent. So is this the main single parent? The children may not see their father or their mother, depending on who they're with, and that child can be very dependent, become very anxious on that one single parent. Does Triple P have any ways to actually deal with child anxiety and separation anxiety and anything that comes around those sort of things? Because I know with my son, and I'm using myself as the examples all here, but with my son, I know I spent a time in hospital and he was used to having me 100% of the time, and because I wasn't with him for a couple of nights, the anxiety that created in him, if I have to go to the doctors or go to a hospital or anything like that, he's concerned that I'm not going to come back, and I've managed that. But those sort of events cause quite a bit of angst in a child, which is understandable. You're their main person, okay? You're their safety person. Does Triple P have methods and processes that parents can deal with regarding kids not wanting to go to school or all of those sort of things?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few responses to that. If parents were to do just a Triple P program in general, that would help them be planful and send clear, calm messages to create predictability in their home. Triple P also has like individual programs like Fear Less Triple P, which is a program to help parents support their children with anxiety. So it's a bit different from other programs in that it supports the parent to be able to support the child.
Yeah.
Whereas other programs might be programs where a clinician might support the child, for example. So this is supporting the parent. So that's called Fear Less Triple P. But in general, if parents are planful and do a regular Triple P program, even like Triple P online, or there's even a teen version of Triple P online, if they were to do something like that, that could be help them as well. But Triple P does have individual programs called a program called Fear Less, which is a 6-session program that parents could do individually or in a group setting as well with a practitioner.
Okay, that's cool. Because
an online version. I'm sorry.
No. Carry on. No, go.
An online version of that as well, of Fear Less Triple P. So if parents were to log into the Triple P website, which is www.triplep-parenting.net.au. If they were to log into that website, they will find all the different programs of Triple P, and they would find how to log into Triple P online or Fear Less Triple P. So that's worth exploring for parents if they want to have any sort of support. Low level support, more intensive level support.
Yeah. And I think with Triple P, aren't there certain states that actually offer, because I know like Triple P, there can be, there's some you have to pay potentially, but there are some states that actually offer this free, don't they?
Yeah, that's true. And when parents log on to it, it'll tell them whether it's available to them for free. Is when they log on to the website, it'll tell them.
Yeah, because I think Queensland, it's free, I believe, but log on to the website, listeners, and find out.
Yes.
I think in Queensland it's free, so that's awesome. And I think there may be some benefit within Victoria, however, because I think it's government supported, isn't it, or something like that.
Yeah, and well,
that's council supported. I don't know, but it's something like that.
Yeah, there's a few developments happening around that, but it's probably best if the parents log on to the website itself.
Yes,
and that will tell them what's available for them for free as well. Yep.
Yeah, I think we should be lobbying all the premiers to actually be getting this free in all of the states, because we need it in all of the states. Like, parents need as much blooming help as we possibly can get. But yes, no, that's fine. That's okay. So look, do you have, I know you train practitioners now, and that's an awesome job that you do, because these practitioners then go out and change people's lives basically, and assist and help people in bringing up more rounded and more whole children. And there are various different backgrounds and various different challenges that we all have, whether it's autistic children to just single parents and domestic violence situations. And I say domestic violence, but there's so many other situations as well. And do you have any success stories from any families that have actually gone through the Triple P process, or that you've supported, or that you know other practitioners have supported? And look, we don't need to mention names or anything like that, but like any examples?
Well, interesting. When I think about that, there's one family that always sits in my mind that I work with. This is a family who weren't necessarily from Australia. They'd come to Australia from an Asian country, and they'd separated after they were here, and they had one boy. And mum was sort of in an adopted environment where she grew up in, and mum had this almost no ability to build a relationship with her child, and she would screech at him. And he was actually quite a cooperative. He's quite a big boy, but quite a cooperative boy. Mum would screech at him in minor things. So they had this really challenged relationship. So the reason it struck me, this particular family, was I started to go through a Triple P program with this family where we introduced lots of relationship building strategies like spending time with children, physical affection, giving children attention, quality time, create engaging activities with children. So we just started with those relationship building strategies, and mum just absolutely absorbed this idea of just relationship building strategies. And mum made this huge turnaround for herself. I didn't even get to, and I rarely ever do this, but I didn't even get to the strategies for dealing with difficult behaviour because mum felt she didn't need to. She had made this miraculous change in her relationship with her son, even though she was now by herself with him, just by thinking about building a different relationship with him, by spending time with him, talking to him, physical affection. There was no physical affection prior to this, but it sounds strange, but mum hadn't really even thought about this. She was just trying to coerce him the whole time to cooperating differently. Yeah. And it made this huge change in her relationship with him. So that always sticks in my mind, this family, because I didn't even get to do the whole program. I just focused on these relationship building strategies. That doesn't happen all the time. I should qualify that. But that's something I always remember, a family that was quite different, the way mum absorbed the information.
Well, it's quite funny because I suppose if you've been brought up in a certain way, and potentially it could be your culture, or, it just could be the parenting style that you were brought up in, then that's all you know. You don't know any other tools in your toolbox as such, and I keep mentioning that, but that you have no other tools in your toolbox to actually be able to pull on. So you just know how you were parented or how you saw people being parenting. Oh, I got that wrong. But it's been a long morning already. But And
Claire, one of the features of this model that I really like, even though I've trained in lots of other parenting type programs, but what I really like about this model is that it's underpinned by a model of what we call self-regulation. So what we're trying to do with everything we do with families, we want trying to help parents help themselves. So as we filter out information to parents about these ideas, we help them decide what they want to choose to do for themselves. We help them problem solve their own questions. So we have processes that we train practitioners in to be able to do that, as opposed to using an expert model where we're just telling parents what to do. So we're not using it, even though it looks like we've got a lot of expertise, expert information. We're providing the information. Then the practitioner's job is to help the parents capture that information, then work out, okay, how this is going to work for me? How will I use that here? How will I do that there? Help parents problem solve their own problems as well. So parents, the idea of a practitioner is to build the parent's capacity to use these ideas and to learn problem-solving skills, to build relationship with their children. So that's the biggest challenge on my part as a trainer. That's the biggest challenge for me, to teach practitioners how to use this self-regulatory model, which is a key part of all the Triple P interventions.
Yeah, and look, I love how you actually use that model, though, because at the end of the day, practitioners or psychologists or whatever, if they're actually managing and dealing with the child regarding anxiety or any other issues, right, that's fine, but they get an hour with that child a week, potentially, maybe even an hour a month, okay, which is great because it gives the child somebody else to talk through their issues with and all of that stuff. But then they go back to their family life, which may actually also need to support them. And so therefore what you guys do is you actually encourage the parents and give the parents the skills to be able to support and develop their children as well.
Yeah, we want to build we want to build their confidence and their capacity to problem solve, because some parents can go through life with their children and hardly any problems at all. But there are other parents who have huge difficulties. So we're trying to support those parents to be able to be more successful with their children. And I keep saying to enjoy them, because so many of the families that come along to me, say in the clinic, when I'm in the clinic, they come along with this, that it's almost like a pain in their stomach. It's so difficult for them having a child they feel like is just so challenging.
Yeah.
It can be like having an illness almost. That's how challenging it can be for some families. So it's just great to be able to give them the resource to be able to make a difference for themselves with their children, whether they're from a single parent family or a dual parent family.
And I understand that frustration, because after 2 weeks in lockdown, 9 days in quarantine, and a night of gastro, I can understand that pain. It's definitely been a painful month for me, and I have a good relationship with my son, but it's the challenges of all of that. Yeah, definitely. I understand their pains and their frustrations. So, this is where lack of sleep for me. I had another question for you, and it's just gone out of my flipping head.
Well, there's one thing I thought of before that I could perhaps say as well, just for parents, your listeners, to be aware of the fact that Triple P also has a family transitions program. It's about supporting families who are separated or divorced, and it's not about getting them back together again. It's a program to help parents be the best co-parents they can be. So parents can do it separate. They can do it separate if they want to, or just one parent does it. Whatever.
That was what I was going to ask. Can just one parent do it? Because sometimes bringing two parents to do a self-improvement, as for want of a better word, course, whether it's online or with a practitioner or whatever, can be very difficult. But if you're that one parent who wants the best thing for your child, and to have that try and deal with the co-parenting situation, whatever that may be, I'm just wondering, if you could do it on your own. But so you're saying
the idea, it's designed really to be done on your own, because like sometimes situations where the one partner doesn't even communicate with the other partner at all. There's just no contact at all. But that one parent can still do it, to understand how they can be the best co-parent they possibly can be for themselves. So it's what they can do for themselves, not about getting their relationship back together again. If they do happen to communicate with their partner, they're coached and supported with skills to improve that relationship, that co-parenting relationship, even how to deal with conflict, to help them understand their own conflict style and how they might go better when conflict happens, those sorts of skills. So it's not about getting them back together. It's about supporting them personally to be the best co-parent they can be.
And set the boundaries as such within that relationship between the parents, not necessarily setting boundaries with your child, but setting boundaries with each parent as such, and sort of going from that situation and actually dealing with, because I know it can be very challenging. I know I'm in that same situation myself, although our relationship has improved over the years. So, it does get better. It definitely gets better. But it is about how you deal with that situation and what you actually then emotionally hold on to as well as a co-parent, because sometimes things can be said that you take out of proportion, that potentially you've got to just take a deep breath and deal with it as what it is and manage it, because it's the other person within the relationship or the broken relationship has emotions and feelings as well, and they're thinking something and have assumptions about certain things as well as you have that. So it's about managing that in an adult and mature way. And if you're the only one who can do that, well, then that's fair enough, but you need to take ownership of that and manage that in an adult way. So your course actually helps you to do that, does it? It sort of helps you
it's just about one parent focusing on themselves, because we can't control what that other parent's doing. They can choose to come and do it independently if they wanted to, but if they don't, it's just about supporting that a parent. It'd be great if two parents did it not together but separately, but typically that doesn't happen. Typically a parent does it. But it really helps them. For example, one of the tools built into that program might be something like what we call coping statements, or so as a parent is going to drop their child off to dad or something like that, and it's usually a very anxiety-provoking experience.
Yeah, it can be.
we talk about the sort of coping statements the parents should run through their head before they get to the situation. Now they're about to walk the children up to the door. What sort of thoughts can they run through their head as they walk up to the door? Now they're standing there talking to dad, and they normally have some sort of maybe some conflict there. What sort of thoughts they could run through their head that's going to help them? And then finally they're back in the car and they're going home. I did it. What sort of thoughts they could run through their mind there to say to themselves, I managed it. I managed to stay calm. I didn't blame myself in any way. So they can make coping statements for themselves, just as a very tiny example of a part of that program.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. It is a lot about the internal conversations that you have with yourself that actually, and that's managing your child as well as your ex-partner, regarding like how you actually deal with the situations. I completely agree. It's like it's almost about telling yourself a different story, and also the most freeing thing is to actually accept that that's your child is its own person and your ex-partner is their own person, and that you can't deal with and change them as such. You can maybe influence how your child actually deals with and behaves regarding emotions, etc., but yeah, my child came home from his first day at school after quarantine and 2 weeks of being in lockdown and didn't want to eat dinner because he was so overtired that he had a throw down on the sofa and was kicking everything. So I just left him to it because, I can't change how he was so tired, emotionally drained. So I can't change that, but I can be there to support him and just let him get on with it. And try not to laugh at him because it was the most funniest thing I've ever watched. But,
You might have laughed on the inside.
I did. I couldn't oh my God, it would have made it so much worse if externally I laughed. But yeah, and he is such my own child because I could see myself doing that at 5. So it's all good. But yes, no, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, look, that's great. That's wonderful that you do that because it is such a difficult phase, one, for the children, and there are challenges with them not sleeping and dealing with not having a parent there, but then also you as a parent have got to cope with that changing situation. And it may have been that you weren't, I was the person who ended the relationship, but it might be that you weren't the person who ended the relationship. So there's a whole myriad of other different things that are going on within you as well, because you're grieving the relationship and all of the other different, I think it's 7 emotions that you go through when a relationship ends, as well as trying to keep things normal and, steady and stable for the children that are also going through all of that grieving process as well. It's like, it's an extremely stressful environment to be within. So yeah, no, that's brilliant. It's great to have you guys supporting those parents as such. So okay, you've gone through like the website, you said what the website was and things like that. Do you guys do any this is going to sound a bit like AA, but do you guys do any group sessions where parents come together and they can actually join a group session and connect with a practitioner and talk through their issues as a group?
Yeah, lots of the programs are. There's delivered in all sorts of ways. There's lots of group programs, particularly in that level 4, that higher level. There's group 0 to 12. There's group teen programs. There's group programs for children with disabilities. Okay. There's an Indigenous version of the group program as well. So there's a whole variety of group programs. So lots of the programs are.
Do you have programs for people who are like refugees or people who have come across and are immigrants as such that come on board? Because they are different challenges, because you've either come from a country that's like war torn and you've come from like trauma to a certain extent, or you've emigrated to Australia, which is awesome and great. And I'm one of those people. I also, I'm emigrated here and I'm going to stay here and everything's brilliant. But you then don't have that support network. You don't have that village. You don't have your, cousins and aunts and uncles and, your brothers and your sisters and your parents and all of those things to actually be able to support you. So do you do programs for that sort of area?
Yeah, there may not be specific programs for that group, but as we think about practitioners, as they deliver a program, because the practitioners are the expert on their community, who they work with. So it's once they understand the process and understand the self-regulatory process, they can then support that parent specifically with, for example, helping them. They might extend the program, they might go a lot longer for refugee families. They might slow things down in terms of how they might explain certain strategies. So they then adapt to the communications style of the families they're working with. So it's up to them to perhaps do that, because they're the experts on their community that they work with. But they've also got to understand the programs. They're not changing the program. They're being flexible on just how they deliver it. And practitioners report that they do that sort of thing.
Which is the advantage of having a practitioner work with a group to actually understand what their requirements are and deliver the tools that enable those people within that group to actually do what they need to do, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So apart from the website, are you guys on Facebook, on all of the normal, typical this day and age social media as such? And can people access those platforms via the website?
That's a good point.
Are they like little logos that they can?
I think they are. Yes, I think they are. Yeah, the website will. You can even ask questions. So the website. Will allow practitioners to do parents to do that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And the website address again is www.
Triple P. That's just one word. TRIPLEP dash. Parenting.net.au.
Cool. Okay, that's brilliant. I'll put that in the actual in the podcast notes anyway, so everyone is aware of that. That's okay. So lastly, I love this question. Ask this to all my interviewees. If you had a superpower, what would it be? What would it be, Michael?
If I had a superpower? Well, I'd like to think I'd be able to connect my brain with other people's brains to be able to filter out some of the stuff that parents and children have taught me over the years. If I could somehow have a connection that could just flow, the things that I've seen and the things that I've learned, that would be a great thing. So as I sit with the parent, rather than me having to go through all those processes that we go through to help support parents, if I could just somehow connect my brain to someone else's brain and all that history could filter in there, I just wonder what that would do. I wonder if
we need a Michael Hurd drink. That's what we need. So that all your knowledge can go into a drink, like a milkshake for some example's sake. I don't know why that came into my head. And then we can just drink in all of your knowledge. Happy days.
Maybe. I just feel like I've seen so much, and it's not so much that I know a lot. It's just that you can't help but, when you work for such a long period of time, you can't help but see and learn from parents that you work with. And I don't really see it as me learning so much as my parents teaching me and children teaching me by what I get to see. So for me, that's been really valuable. And it'd be nice to be able to have that direct link to someone's brain. We might have that eventually one day to be able to.
Well, I was going to say, geez, no, don't go there. It's a bit frightening, really. I dealt with virtual reality a couple of weeks ago, and that just blew my mind. Right. So, I was like a little bit addicted. So I'm understanding how these kids get addicted to these things, because I was like, I need to do this again. But yeah, no, I agree. No, you never know. You know, you might be sitting in one chair that's connected to some like thing that goes on your head, and then somebody else, and then we just convert. Wow. Who knows? Look, do you know what? What is it they said? I can't remember where the saying comes from, but if you can think it, then you can do it. So, any idea that you have will eventually come to fruition and be created. So maybe we need to send this podcast to Elon Musk or whatever and go, hey, dude, stop flying to other planets and let's start doing this mental transformation stuff. Yeah. And you'd make, well, he doesn't need to make millions, but, you might help humanity as such. Mind you, that might be taken over for evil as well. I could see it being taken over for evil.
For sure.
So, God, no. Wow. Okay, that's awesome. That's something to think about. Crikey, I could do a whole podcast on that. Blimey. Okay, brilliant. Look, Michael, thank you. It's awesome speaking to you, and it's great what Triple P does. It's brilliant what you guys are doing and what the practitioners out there are doing. Any help that parents can get is good help. Look, thanks ever so much for everything that you do.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks so much for talking to me. I hope there's something we talked about today that might help your families.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed. Yeah, and that everyone go to the website and have a look and see. And hey, look, Queensland, you can like utilize this to the max because it's free up there. So yeah, no, look, brilliant. Thank you. Have a good day, Michael.
Thanks, Claire.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you'd like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family on all the usual social media platforms that you're normally on. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content that I know you're going to want to hear, like this. If you want to check out past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources, and show notes, go to our website, www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey, and Twitter. Have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself, and remember, no one's perfect, and we're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.